welcome to the first episode of this 3-part mini-series where you're going to have steps that help you complete the gem coloring practice page in your packet. We're going to be watching these episodes at the beginning of class all together as a group, and then once we reach work time, you're going to be able to complete these steps before you actually begin working on your tasks for the day. We are going to go through these steps very quickly, so you'll have to pay close attention and just know that if you need to rewatch these episodes, they are available for you in the recorded lessons section of Teams. So we are going to cruise through these steps. I'm going to show you how to fill in the first gem in this episode where you're working with one tone. Next class we'll be working with our 2-tone gems, and the final episode for this mini series is completing our 3-tone gems. I'm going to show you one option, and I do want you to use the same colors that I'm using so that you can practice and try to make it look exactly the same. But then you have 3 more gemstones that you're going to attempt different color combinations with while using the same set of skills. So let's go ahead and get started with the steps. The first step is to collect your colors. We're going to be working with Crimson Lake, with black, and with white for this first 1-tone gem that we're working on. The second step is to take your handheld pencil sharpener and make sure that these are sharp as you can get them. You're going to write down the date that we're completing this demonstration, and then we're going to write down the color list. So we're going to add black, white, and crimson. Now, underneath our color list, just down at the bottom here, we're going to practice fading from one color to the next. So since we're doing a 1-tone, that means that we're only including our shadow color and white, and then we're going to add in just one color. So when we're working on completing our value scale down at the bottom, we can keep in mind that we're breaking this down only into 3 sections. So I'm going to start off at one end, and I'm just going to add my dark black, and I'm going to slowly start pressing lighter and lighter. If we break this section down into 3 even sections, we have our black off to the side. Now, it's all right if this comes out just a little bit farther into this section, but we want to leave the middle section for our main color. So we're just going to get a little bit lighter and then fade out to white just a little bit past that mark for our 3rd section. Then we're going to come in with our crimson. I'm going to go all the way back up until where I was varnishing with my black, and now I'm varnishing again. So that means that I'm pressing so hard that you won't see any little marks showing through from the paper. It will look sort of waxy when I'm done. So I'm just varnishing over the top of this black. We're going to be filling the middle section with our red, our crimson, and we want it to start fading about halfway. So I've varnished with my red all the way out to about halfway, and then I'm slowly going to start lightening this up. And this will transition into our 3rd section, and we want to fade it to white about just a little bit into that 3rd section. So now I'm going to take my white and I'm going to go back to where I was varnishing with my red, and I'm going to overlap it with my white, pressing super hard, going the opposite direction to help it varnish. We're going to begin just by taking our darkest color, which will always be black, and we're going to outline a shape. It does not have to be a perfect oval. For all of these examples, our light is going to be coming from the bottom. So I'm going to draw myself a little sun, and I'm going to have my lines coming all the way out to the outermost edge that it can touch, which is there and here. Now, those give us indicators of where our darkest shadows are going to start. So we'll know that the dark value goes all the way out till here and here. Now, before we can start adding our darkest values, we need to add the highlights, which typically end up inside of our darkest values. So we're going to go all the way up to the top, and I'm going to just start by drawing an even line so that it's almost to the halfway mark of my gem. And then I'm going to make a point at the bottom, and this is going to be sort of a crescent moon shape. So I'm going to have this get thicker in the middle and then come to a point at the end again. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break this down into sections, and I don't want to leave any spaces too large. Now we're also going to add in a couple little spots, and we can add in some glimmers, so just like extra little highlight marks. Now we're going to get started working on adding in the darkest values. So I'm going to be thinking about breaking this down into 3 sections that I'm filling with value. So for my first section, I'm starting with my black. I'm going to make this a nice crisp line going all the way around. And remember that we are starting with varnishing. So I'm filling this in so solidly that you won't be able to see the texture from the paper at all. And I'm bringing this black all the way down to where my sun lines were able to touch, so those outermost edges. Now from here, I'm going to be thinking about breaking this down into a crescent shape, so I can almost sort of use the edge of my highlights to help me figure out where this black is going to go. So I'm still varnishing with my black, and I'm thinking about breaking this down into thirds. So something that might be helpful for you is to fill in where your sections are going to be. And remember that we are going to have some areas that are fading out to white. So this section will be white, this section will be red, and this section will be black with transitions in between. It's always best to leave a little bit more for your lighter section than you think you might need. As we start to reach the section that we had planned for red, we want to help this black fade all the way out to white, leaving those little glimmer highlights alone. The most important part of what we're doing right now is filling in a large section of the lighter version of our shadow. If we don't have enough of this space where it's the lighter version, then our next color won't be able to transition as easily. So now that we have helped our black transition as smoothly as possible into the white of our next section, we can get started adding our main color. So we're going to take our crimson, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top where I can see that some of this black isn't quite varnished, starting at the top of this highlight. And now I'm still varnishing with my red over the top of where that black was starting to get lighter and lighter. So I'm taking my red and varnishing up against the bottom of this crescent shaped highlight. Now I've just reached the end of my black section that I've filled in with my lighter transition of black. So now I'm going to add just a solid little skinny section of pure red, filling in all the way up to the edge of where I had drawn out that little line. And now I'm going to help this transition out to white. And I want to make sure that I'm wrapping my red all the way around at this point. So once I get to just solid red, that's when I'm going to bring it all the way around. And I'm still going to be working with a crescent shape, trying to make this fade into white. So I'm just slowly going to start getting lighter with my red. And we want to avoid any like solid sections of value with this. So I'm being extra careful to make this a nice smooth transition. And I'm mostly just bringing down this lighter version of my red at the top. So now I've faded this out so that it's just smoothly transitioning out to the white the best that I can. I'm just going to barely graze the paper as I get towards the center so that it will help have a smooth transition into that white. I'm making sure that my varnished area goes all the way around, and then I can help that transition back into my light, and we should have almost like just a smaller circle down at the bottom. And then we're going to take our white, and we want to make sure that we don't bring our white into the solid red section. So I'm going to just start where it's beginning right in the center, and I'm pressing really quite hard with my pencil. And I notice that there are some abrupt edges, which is normal with white, so I'm just going to add another little layer to help that transition out a bit better into the white. I'm gonna go over that again. Now we're just pressing and varnishing with our white over the top of our lighter version of red. So I'm going all the way up to where that darker red section was, where I was varnishing. And this should be eliminating all of the texture that you left. You can see the difference between this varnished section where I had filled in red and the unvarnished section. There you go. I hope you were able to learn a lot by watching this episode and that the steps were helpful for you in understanding how to shade in a one-tone gem. Remember that these episodes are found in the recorded lessons section, and I highly recommend having it playing while you're working on this, just so that you don't forget any of the steps, because it is quite a few steps to just remember for the very first practice. I also would like for you to complete this gemstone before you move on to any of the other daily tasks for today to make sure that you get this finished. You should know that we are going to complete one of these gemstones at the beginning of the next 6 class periods, just to help you practice and make sure that you have just a small little chunk of time dedicated to learning how to create these gemstones as successfully as possible. Thanks for watching.